SOS Audio presents Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody, fan audiobook, written by Nagaru Tanigawa. The month of May was already hot enough, but July was just unbearable. The humidity was even worse, raising my unhappiness index to record high levels. There was no chance a cheap high school building like ours would be installed with such high-class devices as air conditioning. The sizzling Classroom 5 was like the waiting room for the bus to hell. I firmly believe the architect had no concept of what comfortable living environment meant. To make matters worse, this week was the first week of finals. The joyfulness of my heart had gone to linger somewhere around Brazil, not wanting to come back yet. My midterm results were already disastrous, so there was no way my finals could have a satisfying ending. This was most likely due to me spending too much time with the SOS Brigade and not being able to concentrate on my studies as a result. I didn't want to have anything to do with that, but ever since spring this year, whenever Haruhi makes a suggestion, I would mysteriously follow her. This has become part of my daily routine, and I'm starting to hate myself for getting used to it. It was after school when the sun finally decided to make its appearance from behind the clouds. The girl sitting behind me poked my back with her mechanical pencil.
Do you know what today is?
Suzumiya Haruhi wore the delighted look of a kid on Christmas Eve. Whenever she revealed such a detailed expression, it was a sign that she was probably up to something mischievous. I pretended to think about it for 3 seconds and then said, "Your birthday?"
No.
Azahina-san's birthday?
Nope.
Koizumi or Nagato's birthday?
How should I know when their birthdays are?
By the way, my birthday's on...
Who cares about that? You really don't know what an important day it is today.
No matter how important you say it is, it's still a very hot, normal day for me.
Tell me, what's the date?
July 7th? I don't really want to think about it, but you're not thinking of the Tanabata festival, are you?
Of course I am. It's the Tanabata festival. Any Japanese person knows that.
It actually originated in China, and according to the Chinese calendar, Tanabata should be next month. Haruhi held her mechanical pencil and waved it in front of my face.
Asia ranges from the Red Sea all the way to here.
What kind of geographical concept is that?
Don't they just group all those places together for the World Cup qualifiers? It's like July and August. They're both the summer months.
Oh, really?
Whatever. Anyway, we've got to get a hold of a Tanabata activity as well. I insist that this festival be treated seriously.
I felt that there were probably other things in the world that deserved to be treated more seriously than this. But do you really have to tell me all this? I don't really want to know what you're planning.
Because it'll be more fun if we hold it together. I hereby announce we shall organize something big for Tanabata every year from this year onwards.
Don't decide that on your own! Even though I said that, seeing that Haruhi was extraordinarily excited, I knew it was a futile effort.
Wait for me in the club room and don't you dare go home.
I don't need you to tell me that. I was planning to go to the club room anyway. After all, in the club room, there's a person I must get a glimpse of before I go home. The other members were already gathered in the club room, which was located on the second floor of the cultural building. Haruhi would probably say we're renting this room from the literature club, but it would be more accurate to say it's the de facto headquarters that we forcibly occupy.
Oh, hello.
The one who smiled and greeted me was Azahina-san. She is the source of my heart's comfort. Without her, the SOS Brigade would be as meaningless as curry rice without any curry cubes added. Since July, Azahina-san had changed into her summer maid uniform. Haruhi was the one who brought her the costume. I have absolutely no idea where she got all these colorful costumes from. Azahina-san would always thank her intently. Thank you very much. Today, she was still the SOS Brigade's reserve maid, diligently brewing wheat tea for me. I sipped my tea and studied the room's surroundings.
Hey, how are things going?
Koizumi looked up and greeted me. He was sitting in front of a chessboard which lay on the table, and was holding a chess book in one hand while moving the chess pieces with the other. Things have never been normal for me ever since I entered high school. Koizumi said he was tired of Othello, so he decided to bring in a chessboard last week. But since I nor anyone else knew how to play chess, he had to play all on his own. How can he look so relaxed even though exams are coming up?
Well, I'm not exactly that relaxed. I'm just making use of the time when I'm not studying to exercise my brain. For every problem solved, the blood circulation in my brain would flow faster. How about a game?
No thanks. I don't feel like exercising my already exhausted brain right now. If I think of any more weird stuff, then all of those English words that I've spent all of my free time memorizing will be ejected.
That's a pity. Maybe I should bring a Monopoly or Battleship board next time. Oh yeah, how about something that all of us can play? Do you have any ideas?
I don't care, do whatever you want, but this isn't the board game study group, you know. This is the SOS Brigade. By the way, I'm still mystified as to what activities the SOS Brigade should be involved in. I wasn't sure what this mysterious club should be doing. I didn't even want to know, since not knowing anything enhances my chances of survival. So I wasn't really motivated to do anything. Well, that's my logic anyway. Koizumi shrugged his shoulders and went back to studying his chess book. Sitting next to Koizumi with less emotions than a robot was Nagato Yuki, who was busy reading her book. The silent and cold alien has gone from translated novels to original foreign language novels. Right now, she was reading a book whose cover was scribbled in a language I couldn't recognize, like one of those old, thick, magical spell books. I guess it must be written in ancient Etruscan or some other weird language. I'm sure Nagato would have no problem reading those old linear A stone tablets. I pulled out a foldable chair and sat on it. Asahina-san quickly set a cup in front of me. Who would drink hot tea on such a hot day? I have no intention of making a complaint which would incur the wrath of the heavens, and sipped my wheat tea with a sense of gratefulness. It's boiling hot. Standing in the corner of the room was an electric fan which Haruhi had nicked from somewhere. Yet its cooling effects were like pouring hot water over burning coals at best. If you're going to steal, why don't you take one of those vertical air conditioners from the staff room instead? I turned my gaze away from the English textbook, whose pages flickered along with the wind, and stretched my back along the folding chair. Knowing very well that I'm not going to study when I get home, I had wanted to see if it would be better for me to study in the club room after school. But I realized that, as long as I wasn't interested in something, then there's no way I could ever get it done, no matter where I was. After all, it wouldn't be physically or mentally good for me to force myself to do something I didn't want to do. In other words, it's healthier if you don't force yourself. That's it, I'm not studying. I spun my mechanical pencil and closed my book, and decided to have a look at my mental stabilizer. By stabilizer, I mean the one that can soothe my cynical heart. She's currently wearing her maid costume and working on her math problems. Looking intently at the questions and then scribbling away on the notebook, looking nonchalant while thinking, then suddenly writing like mad as though inspired by something. Repeatedly performing these actions was none other than Asahina-san. I felt so much more relaxed just by looking at her. I suddenly felt a great sense of pity, as if throwing all my money apart from my allowance into a charity box in the street wasn't too much of a problem. Asahina-san didn't seem to notice I was looking at her. She was concentrated on studying her math. Her every action was enough to make me smile. In fact, I was already smiling. I felt like I was looking at a baby seal. Our eyes met.
Oh, what is it? Did I do something strange?
Asahina-san frantically tidied herself all over. This made my heart melt even more. Just as I was about to sing my angelic praises,
Yahoo!
Haruhi appeared carrying a bamboo shoot on her shoulder. It was a long piece of live bamboo, with green leaves still on it. What are you bringing that in here for? To make a bamboo piggy bank? Haruhi puffed out her chest and replied,
Well, duh, for hanging wishes. What do you think?
What for?
Nothing really, since I haven't hung these wishing bamboo sticks for a long time. We might as well have one now. I mean, Tanabata only comes once a year, you know?
As usual, this had no meaning whatsoever. Where'd you get this, anyway?
The bamboo forest at the back of the school.
If I remember correctly, that's private property, you bamboo thief.
Does it really matter? The bamboo roots are grown underground, so they wouldn't be affected even if the top half got cut off. I mean, it'd be an offense if I stole the whole thing, but I didn't. Man, I got bit by a few mosquitoes back there, and I'm so itchy. Mikuru, get over here and put some cream on me. Yes, right away.
Asahina-san walked in small steps, carrying a first aid kit. She looked like a nurse in training. She took out the ointment, then placed her hand into the collar of the sailor uniform and onto Haruhi's back. Haruhi now looked like a cat whose chin was being scratched and blinked her eyes in relaxation. She placed the bamboo chute by the window's side and calmly stood on the commander's desk. Then she took out a few pieces of tanzaku from somewhere and smiled very happily.
Now let's write down our wishes.
Nagato slowly lifted her head. Koizumi smiled cautiously, and Asahina-san widened her eyes. What was she up to this time? Haruhi leapt off the desk, her skirt fluttering with the wind.
But there are conditions.
Conditions?
Kyung, do you know who it is that grants the wishes on Tanabata?
It's Orihime and Hikoboshi, right?
Correct, 10 points. Now, do you know which stars Orihime and Hikoboshi are referring to?
No.
Is it the Alpha Lyrae and the Alpha Aquilae?
That's right, Koizumi, 85 points. That's the 2 stars. So in other words, you gotta point your bamboo shoots carrying the tanzakus towards the 2 stars, you got it?
What are you trying to say? And just which category did the remaining 15 points belong to? Haruhi suddenly gave a sly expression for no reason.
Let me explain. According to the special theory of relativity, there's no way we could travel faster than the speed of light.
Okay, so why are you telling me this all of a sudden? Haruhi took out a note card from her skirt pocket.
Just to let you know, the distance between the Earth and the Alpha Lyrae and the Alpha Aquila are 25 and 16 light years respectively. This means it would take 25 years and 16 years to send a message from Earth to those stars. Those are the facts. You get it?
So what? Speaking of which, you actually bothered to look this up?
So this would equal the time required for a god to receive our wishes, right? We would have to wait that long in order to get our wishes granted. So write down what you would wish for in about 25 or 16 years' time. Writing things like, I want a hunky boyfriend by Christmas isn't gonna work because it just won't happen on time.
Hold on. If it takes 20 odd years for the wishes to get there, wouldn't it take just as long for them to come back? Doesn't that mean we have to wait 50 and 32 years instead?
Well, they're gods. Of course they're gonna come up with something in order to help us. I mean, there's always 50% off auction sales every year.
What happened to the laws of relativity?
Now, does everyone understand what I'm saying? There are 2 types of tanzakus, one for the Alpha Lyrae and the other for the Alpha Aquilae. So please write down what you wish for in 25 and 16 years' time.
This is ridiculous. Isn't trying to pray for 2 wishes to be granted at the same time a little too greedy? Besides, I don't know what I'll want in 25 or 16 years' time. I guess the best one could do is wish that their retirement schemes and investment funds don't go wrong. If Orihime and Hikoboshi were to hear such wishes, I'm sure they'd get a migraine. I mean, they can only meet each other once every year, and yet they're being asked such silly wishes. Why don't you ask your politicians for help instead? If I were them, I would definitely say that. However, as always, this girl was thinking up all sorts of nonsense. I can't help but wonder if she has a wormhole inside her head, since her common sense seems to come from a different universe altogether.
Well, that's not entirely true.
Koizumi actually sounded like he was defending Haruhi, but he said it so softly that only I could hear.
It's true that Suzumiya-san's speech and behavior are unique, but judging from the present situation, it's clear that she knows what common sense is. If her thought patterns were so abnormal, then this world wouldn't be so stable. If that were the case, then this world would have already become a strange one, dictated by very peculiar rules.
How do you know that?
Suzumiya-san wishes that the world would change a bit, and she herself possesses the power to reconstruct the world from scratch. You should know very well.
Of course I knew, though I did have my doubts.
Yet, so far, the world has not gone completely irrational. This is because she values common sense more than her own wishes. This may sound childish, but let's take an example. She wishes for Santa Claus to exist. From common knowledge, Santa Claus does not exist. Because considering Japan alone, it's just not possible for someone to enter a locked house in the middle of the night, leave a present, then leave without ever being detected. How does Santa Claus know what every child wants for Christmas? And there's no way he could leave a present in the house of every child around the world in the space of one night. It's physically impossible.
For someone to actually consider these things seriously, they must be truly crazy. That's exactly why Santa Claus can't exist. The reason why I rebutted him was because he was standing on Haruhi's side, and that really pisses me off. So I raised my question. If you're right, doesn't that mean it's impossible for aliens, time travelers, and espers to exist? Then how come you're here?
Which is why I could imagine that Suzumiya-san feels very uncomfortable with the common sense that exists within her. Her common sense has once again rejected her wish. That is to have a world where the supernatural occurrences become the norm.
Does that mean her wild thoughts have a slight edge over her common sense?
Perhaps she was unable to suppress those thoughts, which is why I, Asahina-san, and Nagato-san were summoned to her side, and why I was granted supernatural powers. Though I'm not sure what you would think of it.
It's probably best to remain unsure. At least I'm not like you. I'm fully aware that I'm a normal human. But I have no way of knowing if that's a blessing or a curse.